Grindelwald template, but Hogwarts White Demon King. Chapter 21. A few days later. At the agreed-upon spot in a corridor. Fred and George carefully pulled out a worn piece of parchment from their pockets. Then handed it to Jax. George lowered his voice, glancing left and right. Tap it with your wand. Say, I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. To close it, say. Mischief managed. Don't let Filcher, anyone find out. Jax took the parchment. He could feel the subtle magic contained within it. Instead of trying it immediately, he put it away directly. Then he took out 2 small crystal vials from his pocket. Inside were liquids of different colors. The silver one lasts for half an hour. After taking it, your brain's information processing speed increases by about 30%. The side effect is a slight fatigue and hunger when the effect wears off. The blue one lasts for an hour, greatly enhancing vision in night and dim environments. The side effect is a short-term sensitivity to bright light. He tossed the 2 vials to the twins. Fred and George fumbled to catch them. As if holding priceless treasures. Their eyes were wide with wonder. Merlin's beard. This is so cool. Compared to their previous ideas for joke products. These truly practical potions excited them even more. Remember. Jax reminded them. Source, keep it secret. Of course. Of course. The twins nodded frantically. Their faces were beaming. The transaction was complete. Jax turned and left. With the Marauder's map. Hogwarts, for him, would no longer be a castle full of unknown mysteries. Meanwhile, the twins began their new business. Selling these 2 practical potions at high prices to older students, especially those who needed to stay up late studying. Their private stash began to swell. Late at night. Slytherin dormitory. Jax confirmed that his roommates were asleep. He cast a simple muffling charm around his bed. He took out the Marauder's map. He gently tapped it with his wand. I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. Where his wand tip touched, black lines quickly spread out, outlining every part of Hogwarts Castle. And countless small black dots, labeled with names, slowly moved across it. Dumbledore, Filch, Mrs. Norris, Peeves, and so on. Everything was clearly visible. He then instinctively scanned a particular area. The Defense Against the Dark Arts office. This was Professor Quirrell's usual area of activity. Quirrell. Jax frowned slightly. This stammering, turban-wearing professor seemed to be more than he appeared on the surface. What key role did he play in the first plotline again? His memory was hazy. He only remembered that Quirrell was possessed. But he didn't seem to play much of a role. Or he simply couldn't recall. What is this guy doing not in his room in the middle of the night? Jax wondered to himself. Then he shifted his attention. A few days later. In Potions class. The atmosphere remained oppressive. Snape patrolled the classroom, picking apart every student's mistake with his sharp tongue. Longbottom. If you can't focus on controlling the heat, I suggest you drink this entire cauldron of antidote, perhaps it will make you a little smarter. Neville's hand trembled in fright, nearly overturning his cauldron. Miles, sitting next to Jax, carefully whispered his complaint to Jax. Professor Snape seems even more terrifying lately. I heard he had a big argument with Professor Quirrell. It was about some security measures. Miles just mentioned it casually. Jax didn't pay much attention. Security measures. Yes. Jax shook his head. But I don't know what it's about. He turned his head, looking at the gossiping Miles. Miles, listen. Regarding Professor Quirrell and Professor Snape, don't inquire. Don't be curious. And don't mention it to anyone else. Huh. Miles looked up, startled by Jax's serious tone. Otherwise, you'll burn yourself, and no one can save you. Jax's eyes held an undisguised warning. Miles instinctively swallowed, scared. He nodded quickly. I understand. I promise I won't mention it again. He never expected these 2 guys to be so dangerous. Well, Professor Snape already looked dangerous. And Professor Quirrell, with his strong smell of garlic, was also extremely dangerous. A clear Thursday morning. A gentle breeze swept across the lawn behind Hogwarts Castle. First-year students stood in a line. Beside them were old flying brooms. This was flying class. Taught by Madame Hooch. Stretch out your right hand and place it above your broom. Madame Hooch's voice was clear. Then, firmly command, up. Up. A cacophony of voices rose. Harry's broom immediately obediently leapt into his hand. Hermione's broom rolled around on the ground. Ron's broom shot up abruptly and hit him on the nose. Draco Malfoy's broom reluctantly scraped a bit. Finally, it flew up too. At this moment, Jax looked at the broom at his feet. With a slight shift of intention. He didn't shout like the others. The flying broom lifted automatically. He simply calmly reached out and grabbed it. At this scene, Madame Hooch's sharp gaze landed on Jax, making her feel somewhat incredible. Next, the basic hovering exercise. The trick is, among everyone, Harry showed astonishing balance. And Jax also took off. Although his hovering height wasn't outstanding, his stability was unmatched. His calm demeanor, without a hint of panic, allowed him to master this skill better. At the end of the lesson, Madame Hooch called out to Jax, who was about to leave. Mr. Jax, your flying posture is very steady. Although your sense of speed and adventurous spirit seem lacking. But this stability is a rare quality for a Seeker. I believe you have great potential to be the new Seeker for the Slytherin House team. Are you interested in participating in the tryouts? Jax looked at Madame Hooch. There was no flattered expression on his face. Madame Hooch. Can first-year students also join the team? Madame Hooch smiled. As the flying instructor, I can certainly recommend you to Professor Snape. What do you say? Are you interested in considering it? Subsequently, Jax shook his head. Do these things have any specific benefits for me personally? Madame Hooch paused. She clearly hadn't expected such a response. Benefits. Winning honor for the house. Isn't that the greatest benefit? Jax, however, calmly analyzed. Honor belongs to the house. I need more practical benefits. For example, training and matches take up a lot of study time. Can I get extra academic credits or preferential resources? For example, more attractive conditions for exchange. This series of questions made Madame Hooch's brow furrow even more. She had been coaching for many years. Most people were desperate to join the Quidditch team. Even if they weren't selected, they would cry. She had never seen a student who treated Quidditch as a transaction of benefits. No. Madame Hooch's tone turned cold. Other than bringing glory to the house, there are no such benefits as you mentioned. Training and matches do require time investment, so the school will not provide special resources just because you are a team member. Then, I'm sorry, Madame Hooch. Jax nodded slightly. Politely refusing. I'm not interested in this. All right. That's your choice. A hint of displeasure and disappointment flashed across Madame Hooch's face. Just as she turned to leave, Jax added casually. Perhaps, you could consider Mr. Draco Malfoy. The Malfoy family would be very happy to provide support for the house team. Madame Hooch paused. Without looking back, she clearly understood Jax. Hint, the Malfoy family was wealthy. For Draco to be selected, they would likely be willing to donate a large sum of galleons to purchase expensive brooms. Jax recommended Malfoy. Firstly, to divert trouble. So Madame Hooch wouldn't bother him again. Secondly, he could almost foresee it. If Malfoy were selected, he could certainly do him a favor. And further advance their potion collaboration. As for whether Malfoy would participate, Jax didn't care at all. That guy would definitely go for the sake of showing off. A few weeks later, the first Quidditch match of the semester, Gryffindor vs. Slytherin, kicked off amidst much anticipation. The sky was a bit gloomy, but it couldn't dampen the enthusiasm of the entire school. At this moment, the stands were bustling with noise, and flags fluttered. Commentator Lee Jordan's passionate voice echoed above the pitch. The match begins. The quaffle is snatched by Gryffindor's Angelina Johnson. She breaks through. Oh, a beautiful pass. A bludger. Watch out. Wood blocks it. Truly the unyielding wall of Gryffindor. The golden snitch had not yet appeared. Harry Potter circled high in the sky on his broom, searching vigilantly. The Slytherin seeker had a triumphant look on his face, and occasionally cast provocative glances at Harry. Meanwhile, Harry, riding his loyal Nimbus 2000, was focused, his sharp eyes scanning the entire field. Because once the golden snitch was found, everything would be over. The match was intense. Scores alternated. Suddenly, Harry's broom twitched violently, and began to wildly buck up and down, attempting to throw him off. Oh. No. Potter's broom is out of control. Lee Jordan exclaimed. The stands erupted in an uproar. Hermione and Ron anxiously pointed towards the teacher's stand. Hermione seemed to have discovered something and pushed her way through. Jax narrowed his eyes, looking at the teacher's stand. He saw Professor Quirrell, staring intently at Harry. This Quirrell guy, he really dislikes Harry. It's a pity, if the curse were stronger, the interference would have worked. Jax muttered to himself. He could probably guess what was happening. Subsequently, this commotion was ultimately cleverly resolved by Hermione. Harry's broom returned to normal. And just as everyone's attention was drawn to Harry, Harry suddenly dove just a few feet from the ground, then raised his arm high. He caught it. Harry Potter caught the golden snitch. After such a thrilling ordeal, Gryffindor wins. Lee Jordan roared hoarsely. The Gryffindor stands erupted in deafening cheers. The Slytherin side was dead silent. Draco Malfoy's face was ashen. How infuriating. If that Madam Hooch had agreed earlier to let me play, I would have also defended Slytherin's match with a Nimbus 2000. Now, we lost. Jax watched the outcome. His face remained expressionless. He turned and quietly left the noisy stands. A few days after the Quidditch match, the atmosphere in the Slytherin common room was still a bit gloomy. Losing to Gryffindor, especially losing to the boy who lived, the purebloods felt completely disgraced. Especially Draco Malfoy. He had lost his usual smugness. The scene of Harry catching the golden snitch replayed repeatedly in his mind. Jax, holding a cup of water, inadvertently walked past him. He stopped, still thinking about the match. Malfoy suddenly looked up, with annoyance. What's it to you? Jax took a sip of water. You're wondering why you still can't get into the team. But he can. What do you mean? Malfoy's tone was unfriendly. The meaning is simple. Jax looked at him. Harry Potter can become a seeker because Professor McGonagall recognized his talent and secured an opportunity for him. So, why can't Slytherin have its own exception? He lowered his voice, his tone full of temptation. Just imagine, if you put on the Slytherin uniform and become the seeker. In the next match, you personally snatch the golden snitch right in front of Potter. That would truly be winning against him. Wouldn't it? Malfoy's breathing quickened. The scene Jax described precisely hit his inner desire. Do you have any ideas? I heard you recommended me for the team, but she hasn't agreed yet. People value results more. Especially, if this result can bring tangible benefits. Benefits. Oh my. I'm truly impressed. If the Malfoy family generously sponsors a batch of Nimbus brooms for the Slytherin house team. A seeker with a deep background joining the team, and a pure-blood player, which you all admire. Wouldn't Professor Snape, as the head of house, be very happy to see these things? He paused, and added the most crucial sentence. After all, Potter is already there. Malfoy's eyes suddenly lit up. He understood instantly. Facing Professor Snape, as long as he agreed, there was room to maneuver his way into the team. The power of Galleons was the strongest power. You're right. But why are you helping me? Jax shrugged. I don't fear you, and you're also my customer. Naturally, I'm happy to help you, as long as you put away those ridiculous bloodline theories. Subsequently, Malfoy left excitedly. And Jax could fully imagine how Snape would make an exception for him to join the team. And how he would make Harry Potter lose under the honor of Slytherin. Not long after, the outcome was exactly as Jax had expected. A few days later, Madam Hooch, with an unnatural expression, announced during flying class. Upon Professor Snape's recommendation, Draco Malfoy will undergo training as a reserve seeker for the Slytherin house team. When Jax heard this news, he indifferently raised an eyebrow. He was happy to have his peace and quiet. As for whether Malfoy could defeat Harry on the field, that was not his concern at all. Because the real show was just beginning. A bright feathered barn owl circled overhead for a moment. Then it accurately dropped a parchment envelope in front of Jake's. The seal of the House of Malfoy was stamped on the envelope. The surrounding Slytherin students looked on curiously. Jake's calmly opened the envelope. The handwriting was elegant. It was likely Lucius Malfoy's personal handwriting. Inside the letter, it first praised Jake's extraordinary achievements in potion making. Following that, he proactively proposed a collaboration. The House of Malfoy was willing to offer protection and resources. He could provide channels for potion ingredient supply. Even support in galleons. Finally, it emphasized the hope that Jakes would consider the goodwill of the House of Malfoy. Draco Malfoy, looking superior, strolled over. My father's letter. What do you think of it? The friendship of the Malfoy family is not something just anyone can obtain. Jakes gently placed the letter on the table. He looked up, his gaze calm and steady, meeting Draco's eyes. Cooperation is acceptable. But I have one prerequisite. What prerequisite? Draco frowned slightly. In front of me, drop that blood purity rhetoric of yours. Jakes's words were merciless. This almost directly pointed out the inherent flaw unique to the Malfoy family. I don't care about pure blood, half-blood, or muggle-born. I value ability and worth. If anyone from the House of Malfoy, including you, Draco. His tone was decisive and firm. Otherwise, the cooperation ends immediately. Draco's face instantly flushed red. He opened his mouth, wanting to argue back. The pure blood glory instilled in him since childhood was apparently worthless in Jakes's eyes. If his father hadn't emphasized the necessity of securing this cooperation, he would have lost his temper. His expression shifted several times, and he squeezed out a few words through gritted teeth. I will relay that to my father. Very well. Jakes agreed. Congratulations on the successful cooperation. Subsequently, a cooperation based purely on mutual interest was thus established. During a Transfiguration class. The Transfiguration classroom. The atmosphere was strict and orderly. Professor McGonagall stood tall and straight at the front podium. Now that we have understood the principles of Transfiguration, today, we will officially begin learning Transfiguration, starting with the most crucial step. Specifically, how do we perform the conversion? For example, try to turn a matchstick into a needle. She waved her wand. Her movement was precise and elegant. The matchstick on the podium instantly transformed into a silver needle. Pay attention to my wrist movement and the pronunciation of the incantation. Transfiguration requires extremely clear imagination and precise magic control. Any trace of distraction or deviation can lead to failure. Now, begin your attempt. A low hum of incantations immediately rose in the classroom. Hermione pressed her lips together, fully focused. After the transfiguration, her matchstick gained some luster. But it remained wooden overall. This was already a very excellent start. It even drew praise from Professor McGonagall. However, everyone else was a complete mess. Ron's matchstick didn't change at all. Harry was the same. Malfoy's matchstick twisted slightly, then returned to its original state. But Jakes picked up his wand, but did not immediately chant the incantation. He first felt the matchstick, then closed his eyes. In his mind, he clearly constructed the target, a silver needle. When he opened his eyes again, his wrist turned steadily. Vera Verto. The incantation was clear and steady. Without a trace of hesitation. And so, the system interface silently flickered. Detected the host's extreme talent for matter conversion. Transfiguration talent unlocked. Transfiguration. SSS. An SSS lit up once again. The texture of the matchstick disappeared. Replaced by the smoothness of a needle. A silver needle almost identical to the one Professor McGonagall had conjured. It lay silently on the desktop. The entire process was smooth and natural. The surroundings instantly quieted down. The students who noticed the scene looked at the silver needle in disbelief. Professor McGonagall quickly walked over. Her face showed extreme admiration. Perfect. Perfect form conversion, precise magic control. Mr. Jakes. 20 points to Slytherin. In all my years of teaching, I have rarely seen a student with such astonishing intuition and control in Transfiguration. Jakes calmly replied. Thank you, Professor McGonagall. I simply focused on constructing the silver needle and allowed the magic to realize it. Professor McGonagall gave him a long look. She nodded. Keep it up, Mr. Jakes. You have great potential in Transfiguration. She turned and continued to instruct the other students. Hermione looked at her own matchstick. Her mind was still fixed on Jakes's silver needle. Her lips were pressed even tighter. Ron muttered, how is he so good at everything? Harry shook his head, I don't know. Hermione scoffed softly, you shouldn't say that. HMPH. Malfoy's expression was even uglier, filled with intense jealousy. Jakes ignored the various gazes around him. He sighed inwardly. Another SSS. He was even starting to find this system a bit monotonous. Headmaster's office. The spiral staircase took Jakes to that familiar room. The air was filled with the scent of lemon drops. Dumbledore was sitting behind his desk. Ah, Mr. Jakes, please sit. He pointed to the chair in front of the desk, which had a soft cushion on it. Would you care for a lemon drop? Or perhaps a fizzing whizbee? No, thank you, Principal. Jakes sat down calmly, his back straight. Very well. I didn't invite you here for anything specific this time, just to chat. Your performance since the start of the semester has been, shall we say, quite remarkable. His gaze swept over Jakes, full of insight but without pressure. Whether in your outstanding classroom performance or in certain other aspects, you far surpass the average first-year student. Jakes nodded slightly, without modesty or smugness. I merely did what I deemed necessary, Principal. Necessary things. Dumbledore repeated softly. Yes, all necessary things. Although Dumbledore did not state it explicitly. Jakes knew. He truly knew everything. Jakes was not surprised. Yes. Jakes admitted frankly, I believe it aligns with my interests. Dumbledore nodded, not pressing the matter further. Regarding the scholarship provided by Hogwarts, are you adjusting well? If you have any difficulties, you can bring them up. Jakes looked up, meeting Dumbledore's eyes directly. Professor Dumbledore, I am very grateful for the funding opportunity provided by the school. It helped me when I needed it most. However, I believe that starting next semester, I will no longer require this scholarship. Oh, could you tell me why? Dumbledore raised an eyebrow, seeming slightly surprised, yet as if he had expected it. I have found other means to sustainably support my academic expenses. I believe this funding should be reserved for students who need it more. Dumbledore looked at him quietly for a few seconds. Those blue eyes seemed capable of seeing through people's hearts. Finally, he smiled slightly. Very good, I respect your decision, Mr. Jakes. Your independence and responsibility are commendable. However, while the funding stops, the school's care will not. For students in, well, special circumstances like yours, there is an informal welfare program. For instance, during the upcoming Halloween feast, and the Christmas holiday. You will receive a special small gift. I hope you can feel the warmth here. Jakes remained silent for a moment, not refusing the kindness. Thank you, Principal. You're welcome, my boy. Dumbledore smiled gently. Hogwarts will always be your home. A few days later. Library. Jax was among the bookshelves on the edge of the restricted section. Looking for some books on the fundamentals of ancient runes. Then, a slightly hurried footstep stopped. It was Hermione Granger. She was carrying several thick books in her arms. Including, A History of Modern Magic, and, Famous Magical Events, a retrospective. Jax. She lowered her voice, can I talk to you? About, some strange rumors. Jax pulled out a copy of, Basic Magical Symbols, from the bookshelf. Without looking up. What rumors? Hermione leaned closer. It's about, the Philosopher's Stone. Jax's hand, turning the pages, paused almost imperceptibly. But there was no change in his expression. The Philosopher's Stone. If he remembered correctly, this was the main plot of the first semester. He hadn't expected the trio to have already investigated this far. Hermione didn't notice his expression. Then continued. I've researched a lot about Nicholas Flamel. He's the only known creator of the Philosopher's Stone. And the Philosopher's Stone can turn base metals into gold and create the elixir of life. And then, some rumors, actually, they were in the Daily Prophet. A small package went missing from a Gringotts vault. Someone broke in illegally that day. She took a breath. Her eyes filled with the barely suppressed excitement of a major secret. And Professor Quirrell. His behavior has been even stranger lately, it just feels off. Jax finally closed his book and turned his head. Looking at her calmly. Her face was flushed with excitement. So. Hermione was taken aback by his reaction. So. Harry and Ron, they. She suddenly stopped talking. Never mind, it's nothing. Just pretend I didn't come to ask you anything. A flicker of understanding passed through Jax's dark eyes. I see. If it's Potter and Weasley's plan, you shouldn't interfere too much. Hermione, some things aren't as simple as they seem. Hermione's face instantly flushed red. Feeling a little embarrassed. And a little indignant. No. We're just, all worried. Worrying is good. Jax nodded. But interfering in something clearly beyond your capabilities is called recklessness. If you've really found out this much, you should understand that this matter is very dangerous. Why not just tell Professor McGonagall? Or Headmaster Dumbledore? Hermione opened her mouth, wanting to retort, but couldn't speak. Tell the professors. Are you crazy? Besides, they had no concrete evidence. Jax picked up basic magical symbols and prepared to leave. Goodbye, Hermione. Sometimes, meddling is a danger in itself. As for Potter and Weasley's plan, I wish them luck. After speaking, he turned and walked towards the circulation desk, leaving Hermione standing alone, clutching her heavy pile of books. Her face showed a hint of dazed realization. The days at Hogwarts flew by. Jax's daily life almost smoothly passed in studying and secret research. When Jax found a rare moss sample, he belatedly realized he had reached the edge of the castle. From afar, he could see the massive figure of a half-giant. This is the stone hut. Hagrid's cabin. Hagrid was squatting outside the house. His huge body completely blocked the view in front of him. He was looking down, concentrating on something. Originally, Jax had intended to bypass him. But he sensed something was very wrong. And some ancient aura. So, he changed direction and approached silently. Hagrid. Hagrid was startled. My goodness. Jax, right. Before Flourish and Blots, I met you. Harry's first wizard friend, even though you're not in the same house. He babbled incoherently, while almost instinctively hiding an item. And trying hard to cover the hidden object with his moleskin overcoat. Jax's gaze went past him. That's right. So Hagrid, what are you looking for? Is this a Norwegian Ridgeback egg? I sense an aura. Jax's voice was devoid of any inflection. Hagrid's eyes instantly widened like brass gongs. His mouth was open wide enough to fit a dragon egg. You, how did you? Merlin's most ample pajamas. How did you find out? The scent, and the restless surge of life. Jax explained simply, almost confirming the matter. It really is a Norwegian Ridgeback egg, isn't it? Hagrid, where did you get it? Strictly speaking, private dragon breeding is a serious crime in the wizarding world. Hagrid's face fell. He hesitated, but couldn't resist the urge to share his secret. I was drinking at the Hog's Head, and a stranger in a hooded cloak lost it to me. But don't you think I can't take care of a dragon? Jax interrupted him, his tone certain. You've been tricked, Hagrid. What? Impossible. Hagrid became agitated. No. This is a Norwegian Ridgeback egg. Jax was speechless for a moment, had he mentioned that. I mean, would a normal person really just give you such a precious dragon egg? Didn't you get tricked out of something? After this reminder, Hagrid's face paled a little. Did you reveal anything about Hogwarts? Hagrid froze completely. His arms, holding the dragon egg, trembled slightly, and all color drained from his face. Fluffy. Fluffy. Jax narrowed his eyes. He took one last look at the dragon egg, which contained dangerous life. This egg is the bait. Indeed, you really were tricked. I hope you didn't reveal too much information about Hogwarts. Otherwise, it will cause trouble for Professor Dumbledore. He said no more and turned to leave, leaving Hagrid standing alone. The expression on his face was no longer about the dragon egg. Well, he still glanced at the dragon egg lightly. But he did become serious. That Norwegian Ridgeback egg, he had to admit. When he felt this invisible aura, Jax's system seemed to loosen a bit. But quickly returned to its normal state. Dragons, ancient magical creatures. Ancient magical beasts, containing primeval magic. Jax muttered to himself. No wonder Grindelwald sensed this ancient magic. What a pity. It didn't break through the ancient magic template. It seems more opportunities are needed. He felt a touch of regret. If he could unlock the ancient magic talent earlier, perhaps he could begin to explore profound content. This would be very helpful for increasing his strength faster. Alas. Indeed, one must walk step by step. At least, this proves that the mysteries of ancient magic are not so difficult to reach. At this moment, he looked up at Hogwarts Castle. Under the setting sun, the castle's shadow stretched long. So his pace back to the castle quickened a bit. It was time for another Quidditch match. The stadium was once again drowned in noise. The atmosphere between Slytherin and Gryffindor was fiery. This time, Draco Malfoy did not disappoint. Riding his new Nimbus, he sped rapidly. He clung tightly to Harry Potter. Thanks to Jakes's guidance, his flying was far more aggressive than it had been during flying lessons. Although Harry was still agile, Malfoy's interference severely limited his search area. Just as Harry attempted to shake off Malfoy's marking. It's there. Malfoy followed him down in a near-simultaneous dive. The two figures rapidly dropped. The golden snitch darted away swiftly. Harry's hand was almost touching it. Malfoy suddenly accelerated from the side and behind. He roughly snatched the small ball and clenched it tightly in his palm. He's caught it. Draco Malfoy has caught the golden snitch. Slytherin wins. Lee Jordan's voice was filled with disbelief. The next second, the Slytherin stands instantly erupted in fervent cheers. Green banners waved wildly. The Gryffindor side, however, fell into dead silence. Malfoy raised his arm high, displaying the golden snitch in his hand. His pale face was incredibly excited. He flew past Harry at a low altitude, mocking him. See that, Potter? This is what a real seeker looks like. You can't win matches on luck alone. Harry gritted his teeth, offering no response. Draco. Draco. Long live Slytherin. Long live Slytherin. Amidst the wave of celebration, Malfoy entered the Slytherin ranks like a returning king. Everyone continuously complimented him. When he encountered the calm-faced Jakes. Did you see that, Jakes? Malfoy was excited, his voice slightly shrill. We won. I beat Potter. Jakes frowned slightly and lowered his voice. Should I congratulate you then? Then congratulations. Malfoy smiled. He even reached out, intending to shake Jakes's hand. Previously, he had despised Muggle-borns. But now, he had at least changed his opinion of Jakes. Cooperation. We must continue working together. Don't worry, I will tell my father that you are absolutely a partner the Malfoy family should wholeheartedly support. Jakes merely glanced at him indifferently. All right. Malfoy watched his retreating back. The conviction for this partnership grew stronger in his heart. The victory celebration continued. In the Great Hall that evening, the Halloween feast was exceptionally lavish. There were pumpkin lanterns, pumpkin pies, and everything imaginable. The atmosphere at the Slytherin table reached its peak. Jakes left the table early, taking Miles with him into an empty classroom to practice spells. Earlier that day, Miles had failed a spell. So he had asked Jakes for guidance, wanting extra practice. Relax your wrist a bit more. Magic output should be like breathing, not brute force. Jakes leaned by the window, occasionally offering pointers. Miles practiced the Lumos spell again and again. Lumos. Just as the ball of light in Miles's hand finally stabilized, a sound came from outside the classroom. Thump, thump, thump. Heavy and clumsy. Then, the air carried the smell of grime and rot. What was that sound? My Lumos shouldn't make such a huge noise, should it? Miles jumped in fright, his hand shaking. The light ball instantly went out, and his face turned pale. Jakes slightly frowned and walked to the door. He pulled it open a crack. In the dim light of the corridor, a colossal 12-foot figure was staggering along. It was a troll. A troll. Jakes took a sharp breath. It seemed, this was indeed the crisis that occurred this year. So it happened on Halloween. A.T. troll. Miles's voice trembled. Just then. At the other end of the corridor, the door to the girls' bathroom opened. Hermione Granger walked out. She seemed to have been crying recently, as her eyes were still red and swollen. When she faced the troll, she froze completely. Ah. Oh no. Someone's out there. Jakes and Miles instantly flung the classroom door open. Simultaneously, the troll's murky eyes turned toward Hermione, attracted by the scream. It let out a threatening growl, then raised the wooden club in its hand, preparing to smash it down. Stupefy. A dazzling red beam shot out from the legendary wooden wand. It instantly struck the troll's back. The troll's massive body suddenly stiffened. Its movement ceased. It shook its head, then fell to the ground with a loud thud. It's all right. It's unconscious. Jakes calmly told Miles. And also to reassure Hermione. Is it really gone? Miles was scared out of his wits. Yes. Hermione slumped down at the bathroom in trance, her face ashen. You too. Her voice was choked with tears. Jakes, thank you. Thanks to you being here. Jakes glanced at her, his tone still flat. Are you okay? The troll has been dealt with, you don't need to be afraid. Hermione swallowed hard. She immediately realized that Jakes's magical talent was far more formidable than she had imagined. Because the process of dealing with the troll hadn't even taken 10 seconds. Soon after, hurried footsteps approached. Professor McGonagall, Professor Snape, and Professor Quirrell arrived at the scene one after another. The professors' expressions changed at the sight before them. Merlin's beard. What are you doing here? Do you realize how dangerous this is? Snape's dark eyes first swept over the troll, then pierced Jake's. Meanwhile, Professor Quirrell hid behind them, stammering. Oh. Merlin, that's terrible. Hermione was about to open her mouth to explain. But Jakes spoke first. Professor McGonagall, we were just coincidentally practicing spells here. After the troll appeared, it was about to threaten a classmate's safety, so we took necessary self-defense measures. He paused, then added. According to the records in Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, trolls are not rated highly on the danger scale, so I took the initiative to act. Professor McGonagall opened her mouth. She had intended to scold him for his recklessness. But seeing the unconscious troll and the students unharmed, she finally let out a sigh of relief. The three of you behaved very bravely. 20 points to Slytherin, and 10 points to Gryffindor. However, for wandering around and disobeying the prefect's orders, 10 points will be deducted. Snape gave a cold snort. Which of you cast the stunning spell on the troll? Jakes raised his hand. It was me, Professor. Snape said nothing more. Jakes thought to himself that if he were pure blood, he probably would have received praise. But he didn't care. The professors then needed to deal with the troll. Jakes suddenly spoke up. Professor McGonagall, logically speaking, the castle's internal magical system is quite robust. Trolls of such low intelligence should not be able to enter. However, the current situation shows that the troll did get in. Therefore, there must be another reason behind this. Professor McGonagall and Snape exchanged a look. Snape's gaze once again fixed on Quirrell, becoming sharper and more suspicious. Professor McGonagall nodded. Very well. Your analysis is very logical. However, these are not matters for you to worry about. Now, hurry back. Jakes agreed. He then turned and left. Is the danger coming soon? The plot is moving quite fast. Some time after the troll incident, the school was relatively peaceful. Soon, it was the holidays. The Hogwarts Express slowly pulled into Hogsmeade Village. It was already snowing in the village. The winter sun, filtered through the glass dome, appeared cold and bright. Jax left with his simple luggage. Jax. Hermione Granger caught up to him from behind. She was bundled tightly in her scarf. Aren't you staying for Christmas either? No. Jax didn't stop walking. There are some things I need to take care of. Oh, all right. Hermione said, when we get to King's Cross Station later. My mum and dad are coming to pick me up. Does someone pick you up too? No, I'm an orphan. At this, Hermione clearly paused. Sorry, I didn't mean to. It's fine, let's go. Jax no longer paid attention to Hermione. His gaze turned to Miles Blatch, who had been quietly following behind him. Miles, let's go. Miles nodded quickly, giving a timid glance at the others. He waved goodbye, and quickly caught up with Jax. You're really popular. Not only do you have friends in Slytherin, but you even have friends in Gryffindor. Jax shrugged. Hermione and I'm not so sure. They had only met a few times, in the library, on the express train. Ever since the troll incident, Hermione's attitude had clearly softened a lot. But Jax hadn't noticed. Naturally, he returned to the orphanage this trip. The orphanage was still the same. Its gray exterior walls looked even more desolate in winter. Madame Alice was already waiting at the door. Seeing Jax, she smiled and hurried over. Jax. Child, you're back. You seem to have grown a bit taller and stronger. How was school? Did you get used to the food? How did you get along with your classmates? A string of questions, filled with unconcealed concern. Jax nodded. I'm fine, Madame Alice. School, it's not bad. Come on, let's go back quickly. Back in that familiar, small room. Madame Alice brought him hot cocoa and sat opposite him. Thank you. Now tell me, what is that Hogwarts school like? Jax held the warm cup and was silent for a moment. He understood. Before leaving, he had signed a secrecy agreement, which meant he couldn't reveal the existence of magic. And even less could he use magic. But, Jax had always had an idea he wanted to try. It's a boarding school, quite traditional. There are many courses, including linguistics, mathematics, and some, courses on logical thinking and practical skills. The teachers are quite strict. He vaguely made up content that fit Muggle understanding. Linguistics. Is it Latin? Are the practical skills woodworking or gardening? Madame Alice pressed. Similar. Jax vaguely said, it's mainly about cultivating independent thinking and problem-solving abilities. He cleverly changed the subject, asking about the orphanage's recent situation and Madame Alice's health. Madame Alice then talked about some mundane matters at the orphanage. Which child had grown taller? Which benefactor had sent new books? It felt like going back a few months. At that time, he hadn't yet received his Hogwarts acceptance letter, Christmas morning. Jax woke up to find 2 packages at the foot of his bed. One package was wrapped in familiar, rough paper with the orphanage's logo. Inside were a pair of dark gray gloves. And a card with Madame Alice's blessings written on it. The other package was very mysterious. Thick, dark parchment tied with a silver ribbon, unsigned. But the lingering magical fluctuations on it told him. Is this the care plan Headmaster Dumbledore mentioned? He opened the package. Inside was an ancient-looking book. The cover had no text. The pages inside were incredibly yellowed. He gently opened the first page. He immediately understood. These are runes, containing the aura of ancient magic. Such a precious gift. Jack's heart leapt, his pupils slightly constricted. Dumbledore. This unfathomable headmaster went straight to his deepest desires. If I have this book, I can unlock the ancient magic panel. But, did he discover something? A small alarm went off in Jack's mind. Does he hope I can master ancient magic because I'm too much of a genius? Or did he detect the existence of the template? Then, he dismissed the latter thought. No one could guess Dumbledore's thoughts. But no matter what, he couldn't refuse this gift. He held the heavy ancient tome in his hands, feeling the ancient knowledge slumbering within. The Christmas atmosphere remained peaceful. But within him, ripples had already begun. The small room in the orphanage became Jack's temporary training room. Outside the window, the Muggle world was bustling with traffic. Inside the window, he sat cross-legged on the bed, reading the ancient magic book. However, the runes were like an undecipherable script. Interpreting it with conventional magic theory ultimately fails. Perceiving it with magic, I always feel like something is missing. The next second, detecting host's exploration of the origin of magic. Ancient magic talent unlocked. Ancient magic, SSS. The system interface. That familiar SSS lit up again. Unsurprisingly, the talent was unlocked once more. However, this SSS rank talent gave him a key, allowing him to open the door to ancient magic. He could feel the power contained within these symbols on the book. Like an incomprehensible rule, now. He had no power whatsoever to touch it. Knowing what it is, but not why it is. Jax murmured to himself. Never mind. One day, I will be strong enough to understand these existences. He carefully closed the book and put it deep inside his suitcase, which had an undetectable extension charm applied to it. In the following days, Jack's life became extremely regular. During the day, he would borrow books on philosophy, semiotics, even primitive religions and nature worship from Muggle libraries. But the harvest was minimal. After all, the Wizarding world and the Muggle world were completely different entities. In the evening, he would meditate without fail to practice spells. Through deep meditation, spellcasting ability improved. Current template, 49% integrated. The system prompts became frequent and detailed. His understanding and application of spells were undergoing a qualitative change. This improvement was not dramatic, but it was solidifying his foundation. A week later, evening, a magnificent owl from the House of Malfoy tapped on his window and dropped off a gilded invitation. Written on it in elegant script were the words, Mr. Jakes, you are cordially invited to a small dinner party at Malfoy Manor this Saturday at 7 p.m. Some friends from the magic world will be in attendance. Lucius Malfoy. Dinner party. Lucius Malfoy. Jakes held the invitation. His gaze was calm. He naturally understood the purpose of a social dinner party. This was likely a platform Lucius Malfoy was building. The objective was self-evident. After learning about the potion, Lucius clearly saw its immense commercial potential. He yearned to control it. Moreover, Jakes had already agreed to cooperate with them. As for friends from the magic world, this meant a group of merchants, channels, and connections. If one wanted to quickly accumulate capital and power, these things were indispensable. He put down the invitation. Malfoy Manor, huh? He murmured, then I'll go take a look. I accept this invitation. Subsequently, he picked up a pen and wrote a reply. Accepting their invitation. In the study at Malfoy Manor, Lucius Malfoy's expression was not good. Facing the blue potions on the workbench, there were Jakes's original versions, as well as the products he had attempted to replicate. Still no good. The closest I can get only achieves 65% of the effect. But the cost is more than 3 times higher. I must obtain the formula. Facing Lucius Malfoy at work, Narcissa and Draco Malfoy exchanged glances. They dared not speak. Until the day of the gathering. Jakes arrived for the dinner party. Indeed, Malfoy Manor was filled with pure-blood wizards. At this moment, he looked at Lucius, who was sitting in the armchair opposite, and listened to his question. Can't you provide the complete formula? The Malfoy family can offer you a satisfactory price. Jakes picked up the black tea served by the house elf. He took a sip. The formula is unique, and cannot be replicated. This is related to my personal processing method. However, since mass-producing the high-end version is difficult, perhaps we can change our approach. Lucius Malfoy's eyes lit up. What approach? Lower the standards, expand the market. Jakes said. I can provide a simplified formula, with about 60% of the original effect. The duration is shortened, but the cost can be compressed to 1/5 of the original. Or even lower. However, the ingredients are very common, making it more suitable for large-scale mass production. Can it be mass-produced? Will it still make money? For pure-blood families who have possessed wealth for generations, only precious treasures are considered valuable. Perhaps sensing his doubt, Jakes added, Mr. Malfoy, if a luxury item that was originally only affordable to a few elite wizards becomes a low-luxury item that most ordinary wizards can buy once, how many times will the total market and profit expand? Lucius's eyes instantly flashed with brilliance. He immediately understood the immense business opportunity. He pondered for a moment. Simplified version, 60% effect, 1/5 cost. Can you guarantee that the simplified formula can be mass-produced? Of course. Jakes stated with certainty. I can provide the formula and key step guidance. As for production and sales, that is the Malfoy family's business. Lucius Malfoy readily agreed. Good. Subsequently, a new transaction was silently reached. A few days later, a staggering amount of galleons was transferred to Jakes's vault through Gringotts. Of course, this was just the first payment for the upfront buyout of the simplified formula. A small family dinner. Only Lucius, Narcissa, Draco, and Jakes were present. House elves moved silently, serving exquisite dishes. Lucius swirled the red wine in his glass. Mr. Jakes, your talent is astounding, especially in the field of potions. I am very curious, what kind of family could cultivate such a, genius? Perhaps your ancestors are related to a prominent wizard family. After all, such talent is hard to imagine being born from. He paused. He didn't say the word. But the meaning was clear. Draco also pricked up his ears, feeling a sudden panic in his heart. Hey, didn't I say not to bring that up? But he was still very curious. Jakes cut his lamb chop. His movements were elegant, and he didn't even lift his head. I am an orphan, Mr. Lucius. As far back as I can remember, I was in a Muggle orphanage. He directly shattered the other party's fantasy. If you must speak of bloodline, then I am probably what you call the purest. Muggle-born. Draco's mouth fell open, looking at Jakes in disbelief. At this moment, Lucius's smile completely vanished from his face. All his previous conjectures were overturned. This fellow was truly a mudblood. Although he knew he couldn't say that word now, he still felt as uncomfortable as if he had swallowed a fly whole. The atmosphere at the dinner table instantly dropped to freezing point. Narcissa frowned slightly. Her eyes also grew colder. I see. Everyone, please eat. Subsequently, the awkward family dinner finally ended. As Jakes was about to take his leave, Narcissa Malfoy still called out to him. She wore a polite, faint smile and handed him a small, dark green box. Mr. Jakes, a small gift. Jakes took the box and opened it. Inside was an exquisite silver necklace. Its snake eyes were inlaid with eerie green gemstones. A faint magical fluctuation emanated from it. A small protective necklace. Narcissa explained lightly. It can ward off some unfriendly jinxes. Jakes did not reply, because a system prompt quietly flashed by. Magical item. Serpent Eye Necklace. Effect. Actively triggered shield charm, can resist some low to mid-level jinxes. He didn't really need such an item. But Jakes still accepted it. Thank you, madam. Narcissa looked at him. That child, Draco, has talent. But sometimes, he lacks some necessary guidance. We, as parents, are always reluctant to be too strict. Perhaps, a talented peer like you could better supervise him and make him understand true power. He who accepts a favor is beholden, and he who takes a gift is softened. Jakes instantly understood. Was she asking him to be a tutor? Tutor young Master Malfoy. He repeated. Then, under Narcissa's expectant gaze, he nodded. Yes, I agree. Narcissa was overjoyed. That's wonderful. A tutoring arrangement, each with their own ulterior motives, was thus settled. This further strengthened the connection between Jakes and the Malfoy family. The dark gold wand in Jax's hand emitted a faint glow. Before him lay an open ancient magic book. He tried to guide a faint trace of magic. To touch the ancient runes on the pages. But an invisible, vast force gently pushed him away. Ancient magic analysis failed. An expected outcome. Jax was not discouraged. He instead focused his attention on the wand itself. Legendary wood, the heart of a fire dragon lord. It's time to give it a try. I hope this legendary wood can be modified to have certain functions. He recalled that the necklace Narcissa gave him actually contained a lot of dark magic knowledge. One of them was precisely the 3 unforgivable curses. Let's begin. He closed his eyes. The core of the wand began to heat up. The heart of the fire dragon lord began to activate, subtly modifying the internal structure of the wand. Finally, crack. Trace blocking succeeded. I didn't expect it actually succeeded. Legendary wood is unique. If he wishes, it can completely block wand core tracking. This way, I can fully begin practicing dark magic. Subsequently, he directly took out the Serpent's Eye necklace. He began to use the legendary wood wand to sense the dark magic knowledge within the necklace. Detecting host's understanding of dark magic power. Template fusion increased to 60%. Template core passive ability enhanced. Under the Dark Lord's protection, righteous magic damage is reduced by 70%. A cold and powerful sensation melted into his limbs and bones. A sigh of satisfaction emanated from the depths of his soul. Jax opened his eyes. A flash of understanding crossed the wand. Indeed, dark magic is the shortcut to quickly unlocking the Grindelwald template and achieving true power. Fortunately, the legendary wood wand provides some protection. Over the next few days, Jax's practice subjects shifted from meditation to live practice. Through the Malfoy family's channels, he acquired some white mice for potion experiments. Taking a deep breath, Crucio, he immediately began his first attempt. With a slight output, the white mouse convulsed wildly in its cage. In immense pain, Jax remained expressionless, merely recording the spell's effects. And considering how to control it precisely. The Cruciatus Curse. Truly horrifying. After some attempts, he had a preliminary grasp of it. Then, next is, the Imperious Curse. As his voice fell, he tried to control another white mouse to crash into the cage wall. Initially, the white mouse merely wandered aimlessly. Or made some uncoordinated movements. As he continuously adjusted the intensity of his will to invade. Finally, The white mouse, as if losing its soul, crashed into the cage. This is the imperious curse. The last one is the killing curse. But taking their lives is too cruel. Despite being experimental white mice, Jax had no intention of killing them. After all, they were still very useful for practicing the first 2 spells, until that night. When he was behind the orphanage, a grass snake quietly appeared in his territory. And Jax thought, the opportunity to practice has arrived. Looking at the snake, which raised its head and hissed a threat, Jax raised his wand. His target clear. Avada Kedavra. A green light imbued with death erupted from the wand tip like lightning, precisely hitting the snake's head. The next second, the light in the snake's eyes instantly extinguished. It died. It even exuded an indescribable sense of death. It worked. This feeling isn't very good. Jax looked at the lifeless snake. His heart was unexpectedly calm. Even though he was a Slytherin student, he was supposedly to be considered evil. But he didn't like the feeling of killing. Because he believed, power should be controlled, not used for killing. His goal was merely to gain power. Otherwise, he would truly become the third Dark Lord. Hogwarts headmaster's office. The night was deep. Albus Dumbledore was not sitting behind his desk. In his hand, he held an encrypted letter brought back by Fawkes the Phoenix. From Germany. This brought back a painful memory. Gellert. He sighed softly. His voice echoed in the silent office. The next second, the Phoenix apparated him away, to a cold prison. It was pitch black all around. When Dumbledore arrived with Fawkes, a beam of light finally appeared. This was the highest level of Nurmengard prison. After the cell door in front of him opened, an old but straight-backed figure sat up. Gellert Grindelwald slowly turned his head. Is that you? Albus. His voice was hoarse. What wind has blown you, the righteous man, to my doorstep? Dumbledore walked into the cell. His gaze met Grindelwald's. Invisible sparks seemed to collide in the air. I just came to see an old friend. Dumbledore's voice was calm. Old friend. Grindelwald scoffed, or to see if this cage is still secure. A brief silence. Dumbledore ignored him. He broke the silence, getting straight to the point. I met a child. A very interesting child. Grindelwald's eyebrows twitched slightly. He said nothing. He, like you, possesses unparalleled talent. And like you, has an extraordinary thirst for the essence of power. Grindelwald chuckled softly. As if, after hearing a few words, he was quite pleased with this child he had never met. Is that so? Then this world might not be so boring after all. Not just talent and thirst, Gellert. He has a quality, something both familiar and unfamiliar to me. Grindelwald tilted his head slightly. A sneer on his lips. Oh, what else could make you, the greatest white wizard of this century, feel unfamiliar? He's like you. Dumbledore said. He's also like Tom in his youth. Goal-oriented, resourceful, and for now, he hasn't touched those dangerous areas. A glint of interest flashed in Grindelwald's eyes. An ambitious little Dark Lord in training. Albus, when did you start worrying about such geniuses? Doesn't Hogwarts have a few every year? No, it's different. Dumbledore gently shook his head. He's not like Tom, nor is he like you back then. He's more like a little fellow pursuing his own destiny, eager to control his own fate. It's all so different, it makes me feel very unfamiliar. Grindelwald fell silent. After a while, he let out an enigmatic laugh. Ha ha. Albus, when you speak like that, it leaves me utterly bewildered. But if the opportunity arises in the future, I would truly like to see this little fellow with my own eyes. His gaze returned to Dumbledore. I'd like to see if you'll suppress the third-generation Dark Lord. Dumbledore did not respond to his provocation. He merely gave him a deep look. I hope that day never comes, Gellert. The headmaster's office at Hogwarts. Professor McGonagall stood before Dumbledore, her expression grave. Albus. I believe we need to reconsider Mr. Jax's scholarship. Dumbledore listened attentively. Then he explained. He has certainly performed admirably. One might even say, he is the most outstanding student Hogwarts has seen in years. However, he has made it clear that he will resolve this matter himself. At that, Professor McGonagall placed a report on the desk. There is nothing wrong with his choice. But his academic achievements demonstrate that we should be funding him. Dumbledore did not open the report. He looked at Professor McGonagall gently. Minerva, I understand your concern. Hogwarts Fund is intended to help talented but financially disadvantaged students complete their education. Mr. Jax has proven that he can solve his financial problems through his own abilities. Whether or not we approve of his methods. The fact is, he no longer meets the condition of financial hardship. He turned around. His gaze was calm, as if he could see the other Hogwarts students through the window. If we continue to provide him with funding based solely on academic merit, is that fair to the students who truly need this money? Professor McGonagall wanted to argue. But she could not fault Dumbledore's reasoning. Professor McGonagall finally sighed. You were right, Albus. Very well, I won't bother you about this matter again. Whether it was the pity she felt upon their first meeting or his brilliance in transfiguration. She was very fond of a student like Jax. It was just a pity. He was not a Gryffindor student. And he had begun to gain independence. She had no compelling reason to continue fighting for him. Orphanage. Jax received 2 letters almost simultaneously. One was the Hogwarts return to school notice, reminding him of the start date and important instructions. The other was from Hermione Granger. The handwriting was neat. Dear Jax, I hope you had a pleasant Christmas holiday. After the Christmas break, I have carefully considered your reminder. Regarding the matter we discussed previously, your calm analysis is very important to me. I look forward to your reply. Hermione Granger. Jax put down Hermione's letter. His gaze fell upon the sky outside the window. That matter. The Philosopher's Stone. He believed this was Harry Potter's main plotline. What did it have to do with him? The only thing he needed to do was quietly accumulate power. He just needed to work hard to become strong enough to handle trouble. But a thought flashed through his mind. The Philosopher's Stone. Nicholas Flamel, the elixir of life, turning base metals into gold. These terms were inextricably linked to ancient magic and alchemy. If that's the case, could touching the stone awaken an alchemy talent? Or perhaps allow me to sense the aura of ancient magic? More importantly, Voldemort seemed to be looking for this item. If he actually obtained it and recovered some strength, that would put Jax in a very passive position. After all, he didn't put much faith in Harry, despite him being the savior. Therefore, throughout most of the semester, he rarely socialized proactively. At most, he had only met them once in Diagon Alley. It seems, I can't stay completely out of it. What a hassle. He picked up his quill. Dipping it in ink, he wrote a concise reply on the back of Hermione's parchment. Yes. The owl flapped its wings and departed, carrying the letter away. The trio. I suppose I'll join them for now and see what happens. Time had moved on to after the start of the new term. The Christmas holiday was over. Inside the library, 4 rather mismatched students were gathered together. 1 Slytherin, 3 Gryffindors. Hermione was flipping through her copy of Great Events of the Modern Wizarding World. Nicholas Flamel. I've searched through all the available records, and all I found was that he is a famous alchemist. Beyond that, there's virtually no other useful information. Maybe he's just a distraction. Ron guessed, or maybe Professor Dumbledore deliberately let that information slip. Harry worried. Either way, Quirrell, or whoever is behind him, is definitely after the Philosopher's Stone. Jax was still looking out the window. As if their discussion had nothing to do with him. Hermione couldn't help but look at him. Jax, do you have any thoughts? You always seem to see things we miss. Jax slowly turned his head. His dark eyes calmly swept over the 3 of them. Thoughts? I only remember one thing. That forbidden room. Harry and Ron instantly lost all color in their faces. Hermione gasped sharply. The third floor. Ron's voice was shaking. That 3-headed beast. Fluffy. The 3-headed giant dog guarding the trapdoor. It seemed they had already trespassed. Otherwise, they wouldn't have reacted so strongly. It seems you know what is in there. I hear Hagrid is very good at looking after ferocious animals like that. He said blandly. Well then, good luck to you. After Jax left, Ron immediately frowned. Hermione, why did you bring him here? Everything he guessed, we already knew. Who could possibly get past that 3-headed beast? He didn't offer any guidance at all. Hermione listened. Then rolled her eyes at him. Hagrid, that's who. Back in the Slytherin common room. Just as Jax walked in, Draco Malfoy aggressively strode over and blocked his path. I heard. You've been associating with Potter, and that Weasley and Hermione Granger. Jax stopped and looked at him calmly. So. Malfoy was furious. You're one of our people. You have a partnership with the Malfoy family. How can you get mixed up with Potter? Jax paused, speechless for a moment. Draco. The relationship between you, the Malfoy family, and me is a business partnership. That doesn't mean I need to take sides or participate in your rivalry with Potter. I have my own goals and considerations for interacting with them, understood? Coldness filled his eyes. Malfoy was intimidated, and his aggressive demeanor lessened somewhat. What goals? You don't need to know. Jax walked straight past him, heading toward the dormitory. Draco. Don't interfere with my actions. Malfoy stood frozen, watching Jax leave. His fists clenched, and his face was pale. He felt he had been slighted. Late at night. In the Slytherin dormitory. Miles Bletch finished his potions notes and glanced uneasily at Jax. He spoke softly, breaking the silence. Jax. Jax didn't look up. Speak. I heard the older students saying. Miles's voice held a hint of fear. A lot of people in Slytherin know, well, special spells. I mean, dark curses. They say it's a Slytherin tradition. Do you know any? Jax stopped turning the page. He frowned slightly and looked at Miles. Why are you asking this? Do you want to learn them? Miles nervously waved his hands immediately. No, I don't. I was just curious. They said, if you don't know a few dark curses, you can hardly call yourself a Slytherin. Jax's tone was indifferent. Curiosity is fine, but focus your mind on proper studies. In the first year at Hogwarts, you need to master the basics. Have you perfected the levitation charm? Can you reliably transform a matchstick into a needle? Miles lowered his head in shame. I still have a long way to go. Then focus on doing those things first. Jax didn't want to continue the conversation and offered a warning. Dark curses are not something you should be touching right now. Furthermore, he left the rest unsaid. He still had an agreement with Dumbledore that lasted for the rest of the school year. Even though he knew dark curses himself, it was better not to expose that fact before the end of the first school year. Otherwise, Dumbledore would think he was following in Voldemort's footsteps. Besides, he also didn't want someone as weak-willed as Miles touching dark curses. That would only bring unnecessary trouble. For Miles, it would be completely playing with fire. Go to sleep. Oh. Jax closed his book and extinguished the lamp by his bed. The dormitory fell into darkness. Only Miles's soft breathing remained. In the evening, the sky was a grayish blue. Hermione, Harry, and Ron, followed by Jax. The group arrived at Hagrid's hut. Before they even got close, strange noises emanated from inside the hut, along with Hagrid's voice soothing a child. Don't do that, Norbert. Norbert. Ron whispered, what did he name? Hermione knocked on the door. Then, Hagrid frantically opened the door, his large body trying to block the view behind it. But the excitement and nervousness on his face betrayed him. Oh, it's you all. And, Jax. Hagrid's gaze seemed uneasy. Is something wrong? Just then, a dark shadow darted out from beside Hagrid's leg. It had black scales and a row of spikes down its spine. Its nostrils flared, clearly spewing sparks. This was a Norwegian ridgeback. Norbert, come back. Hagrid frantically tried to grab it. Merlin's beard. Ron gasped, backing away repeatedly. Harry was also startled, instinctively reaching for his wand. Jake's gaze swept over the small dragon. He spoke in a calm tone. It seems you couldn't get rid of it. Hagrid's face fell. I tried. But it's so small, and it's so cute. Hermione said urgently, Hagrid. You have to send it away. This is too dangerous. I know. Hagrid irritably ran his hands through his messy hair. I've already written to Charlie. He's studying dragons in Romania, and he said he'd figure something out, but it'll take time. Just then, Hagrid seemed to remember something and looked at Jax. Oh, right, Jax, thanks to your reminder last time. I told Professor Dumbledore everything about that pub and him trying to trick information out of me. A slight ripple appeared on Jake's usually calm face. You told Dumbledore. He confirmed. Yeah. Hagrid nodded vigorously. Professor even praised me for being vigilant. Jake's fell silent. What was this? Had the plot gone awry? If Dumbledore already knew, with the headmaster's cunning, would the Philosopher's Stone still be kept on the third floor? It had probably already been moved. So, where was the Philosopher's Stone now? On the way back from Hagrid's hut, the atmosphere was somewhat somber. Harry and Ron were still worried about the dragon, while Hermione was thinking about how to get it away as soon as possible. The only good thing is, Harry tried to break the silence. At least we know that thing was indeed on the third floor at one point. Though it might not be there now. Ron nodded. Yeah. Is there anything that can find the Philosopher's Stone? Harry suddenly thought of something. Oh, right, a few days ago I found an empty room with a very strange mirror in it. I thought. I wanted to see my parents, so I saw my parents in it. If we think about the Philosopher's Stone through the mirror, can we know where it is now? Jake's steps suddenly halted. The mirror arised. It was as if lightning had struck his mind. This was a key item. Where is that mirror? Jake's immediately asked. Harry was stunned. It's in an abandoned classroom on the fourth floor. Why? Take me there. Jake's was concise. Hermione and Ron exchanged a puzzled look. But out of trust in Jake's judgment, they didn't object. Had he discovered something? The four of them arrived at the empty classroom. In the center of the classroom, a magnificent golden mirror stood, but its surface was covered with a thin layer of dust. This was the mirror of Arised. It's here. How do we find the Philosopher's Stone here? Could the previous guess really come true? This is too unreal. Jake's walked to the mirror. Each person saw a different reflection. In Jake's reflection, a blurred figure appeared, surrounded by an endless glow of magic. As if yearning for absolute power and supreme authority. Is this my future self? So what if I want to obtain the Philosopher's Stone? He narrowed his eyes slightly. Then instinctively reached out his hand towards the mirror's surface. The next second, the image in the mirror began to hold out a red glowing stone. It appeared. This is the Philosopher's Stone. Just as he was about to retrieve it, a familiar voice sounded in his ear. To be able to discern your heart's desires and remain clear-headed, that in itself is a rare courage. It was Dumbledore's voice. Jake's hand instantly froze and he pulled it back. Dumbledore had indeed been watching him. The Philosopher's Stone had indeed been moved. It was no longer in this mirror. Nothing. Hermione, did you find it? Hermione shook her head, somewhat disappointed. But in the mirror, she saw herself having a bright future. Because of her excellent grades, she entered the Ministry of Magic. What I saw wasn't that. All right. What about Jake's? Did you see the Philosopher's Stone? Jake's paused. He wanted to deny it, as he hadn't actually obtained the Philosopher's Stone. Subsequently, they prepared to leave, disappointed. Just as they walked out of the classroom where the mirror was kept. Around the corner of the corridor, a figure in black robes and a large turban silently emerged. It was Professor Quirrell. Good evening, Potter, and you, little ones. Quirrell's voice was hoarse, with an unfamiliar quality. His appearance now was completely different from usual. His body no longer stooped or trembled. His eyes no longer flickered or darted away. They were filled with malice and a chilling aura. Professor Quirrell. Good evening. What are you doing here? Harry feigned composure. The others also smiled, afraid that their infiltration of the mirror classroom would be exposed. Jake's pupils contracted, he felt something was wrong. Professor, why are you here? I'm waiting for you, Potter. Waiting for you, and the little secrets you might be carrying. Quirrell chuckled sinisterly, slowly walking forward. In his hand, he held a wand. What? Professor, why don't you explain things more clearly? Jake's feigned calmness. If Quirrell appeared at this time, it meant terrible. The worst had happened. Jake's. I remember your name. Your grades in defense against the dark arts are excellent. As an excellent Slytherin, you shouldn't be here. You are defying his will. Quirrell spoke in riddles. But Jake's understood. Really. I wouldn't be like you. This one sentence made Quirrell feel disrespected. The next second, he was ready to pull out his wand and attack the students in front of him. Petrificus totalis. Hermione reacted the fastest, a red light shooting toward Quirrell. But Quirrell merely waved his wand casually. Hermione's spell was repelled by an invisible barrier. Petrificus. Petrificus totalis. Ron also shouted, and his spell was blocked just as easily. Overestimating yourselves. Quirrell sneered, pointing his wand at Ron, Crucio. He hadn't finished reciting his spell. Jakes, who had been observing in silence, moved. He pointed his wand out at an extremely tricky angle, without uttering a chant. But an invisible mental shock instantly enveloped Quirrell. Imperio. The Imperio. It controlled Quirrell's body. Quirrell's body suddenly stiffened, his wand-holding hand freezing midair. An angry roar erupted from the back of his head. Idiot. Resist him. Taking advantage of Quirrell being momentarily affected by the Imperio. Jakes shouted at Harry and the other two, attack him. Don't stop. Petrificus totalis. Locomotor mortis. Hermione immediately followed up with her spell. Harry and Ron also gathered their courage and fired another stupefy. 3 or 4 spells simultaneously assaulted Quirrell. His movements were sluggish, and he barely managed to block Harry and Ron's stupefy. But Hermione's leg locker curse accurately hit his knee. Quirrell cried out in pain, dropping to one knee. And right at that moment, Jakes felt a massive surge of dark magic erupt from the back of Quirrell's head. His Imperio was forcefully nullified. It was Lord Voldemort. Jakes immediately waved his wand. A solid shield charm instantly appeared in front of him. Protega. Bang. The spells collided violently, creating a dull, loud noise. Jakes was jolted back 2 steps, his arm tingling. SSS-level magical power and control. When facing Lord Voldemort head-on, he could only barely manage to take the blow. But Lord Voldemort was only in a weakened state right now. Crucio. Imperio. After a chaotic and dangerous battle. Intense noises echoed in the dim corridor. What is going on here? Petrificus totalis. Professor McGonagall and Snape's voices rang out. She and Snape appeared simultaneously at the end of the corridor. And saw the scene before them. Professor Quirrell was kneeling on the ground in a state of disarray, defending against the spells of 3 first years. While Jakes cast a powerful Crucio. Both professors' expressions changed. After the spell was released. Professor McGonagall's Petrificus totalis rendered Professor Quirrell immobile. Snape swiftly glided over to Quirrell, pointing his wand rapidly at the back of his head. His expression was terrifyingly grim at this moment. However, just as Snape's wand was about to touch Quirrell, a thick cloud of black smoke suddenly burst out from the back of Quirrell's head. It smashed through the corridor window and vanished into the night. Professor, he's escaping. What? Too late. Jakes sighed. In the end, he watched as Lord Voldemort's soul escaped. When Dumbledore returned, he listened to Professor McGonagall's brief report. His bright blue eyes lingered on Jakes for a long time. Professor McGonagall, please first arrange for the students and Professor Quirrell to go to Madame Pomfrey. Snape, you handle the aftermath. Professor McGonagall and Professor Snape nodded. Following Dumbledore's instructions. Yes. Then, he spoke gently to Jakes. Mr. Jakes, would you please come to my office for a moment? All right. Headmaster's office. Dumbledore stood beside Fawkes. Fawkes cocked its head, preening its feathers. Would you like a lemon drop? No, thank you. I know everything that happened tonight. Dumbledore spoke slowly. You displayed calmness, decisiveness, and an unexpected understanding and application of certain spells that is far beyond your age. He paused, his blue eyes becoming sharp. I must admit, Mr. Jakes, in you, I see certain familiar shadows. Gellert's insight into the nature of power, Tom's ruthlessness in pursuing his goals when he was young. But you are different from both of them. Your core belief is rationality. So, you used the Philosopher's Stone to test me. Jakes replied calmly. He met Dumbledore's gaze without fear. Dumbledore nodded slightly. Partially. I wanted to know what choice you would make when faced with the temptation of eternal life and infinite wealth. Would you be consumed by desire, like Tom? I protected it, and did not attempt to seize it. Jakes stated the facts. Yes, you did. Dumbledore's gaze softened. That relieves me. Some worries seemed unnecessary. Can you tell me why? Jakes was silent for a moment. I made an agreement with you that I would not do anything out of line while at school. He looked up at Dumbledore, his tone assured. My grades won't drop because of this, either. Dumbledore was stunned for a moment. Immediately, a truly hearty smile appeared on his face. It seems I truly worried too much. A child who pursues rules, adheres to boundaries, yet maintains astonishing clarity. Mr. Jakes, you always manage to surprise me. His smile gradually faded. His tone became slightly more serious. Then, regarding the spell you used, the Imperio, how do you explain it? Self-preservation, and controlling the situation. Jakes answered crisply and clearly. Given the circumstances, conventional spells could not take effect quickly. It was the most effective choice to avoid greater casualties. I only used them when necessary. Them. Referring precisely to the 3 unforgivable curses he had learned. Dumbledore looked at him deeply. After a long time, Dumbledore was finally convinced. Remember what you said today, Jakes. I am glad to see that, at least for now, you clearly know what you are doing and where the line is drawn. He waved his hand. Go now, child. You did very well tonight. Jakes, however, was stunned for a moment. Dumbledore chuckled lightly. Is there anything else, Mr. Jakes? Then, what about that spirit? It controlled Professor Quirrell, and then it escaped. What was that thing? Dumbledore did not answer. I know the answer, yet I am still unsure, so I cannot answer you for the time being. However, this is not something you should worry about. Since old man Dumbledore said so. Jakes bowed slightly, turned, and left the headmaster's office. After the door closed, Dumbledore remained silent for a long time. Where exactly would the path chosen by this child named Jakes lead? The dungeon. Slytherin common room. Jakes sat alone by the window, his heart not as calm as he appeared. The plot has completely deviated. Logically, Quirrell should have died at the end of the term. But Lord Voldemort's soul escaped early. That should have been, at least several months later. Lord Voldemort escaped early. This means he will recover his strength at a faster pace. He will make a comeback. Meanwhile, Headmaster's office. The atmosphere was equally heavy. Professor McGonagall tried her best to maintain her composure. Albus, this means, that person, he's really back. That was his soul. Snape stood in the shadows, his face even gloomier than usual. Complex emotions churned in his eyes. Quirrell, that idiot. A rat in the gutter. Professor Flitwick's high-pitched voice was filled with worry. We must immediately strengthen the school's defenses. Notify the Ministry of Magic. Notify the Ministry of Magic. Snape sneered. And let that idiot Fudge bring a bunch of Aurors to turn Hogwarts upside down. What good would that do, besides creating panic? Dumbledore pressed his hands together, resting his chin on them. Severus is right, we must not make a big fuss for now. The Ministry of Magic will not believe our claims at the moment. Fudge would rather believe it was an accident, or Quirrell's personal madness. Therefore, strengthening patrols and defenses within the school is necessary. We need to pay attention to the safety of the students. Lord Voldemort is back. I need to think carefully. The professors nodded solemnly. Everyone realized. True darkness was stirring in the shadows. Under the oppressive atmosphere. The last Quidditch match of the term arrived as scheduled. The sky was overcast. The cheers from the stands were also somewhat subdued. And this match was crucial. It would directly determine the ownership of the House Cup. Harry and Draco once again confronted each other in the air as seekers. Their eyes were fixed on finding the golden snitch. But Draco's eyes held a hint of ruthlessness. The match was exceptionally fierce. The two clung to each other, searching for the golden snitch. Until the white-hot stage. A faint golden flash streaked past. Harry and Draco spotted it almost simultaneously. Two figures shot out, entangled together. Just as Harry was about to touch the small ball, Draco suddenly swung his broom, its tail striking Harry. As the opponent lost balance. Caught it. Draco Malfoy caught the golden snitch. Slytherin wins after using despicable means. Lee Jordan announced with shock and a hint of barely perceptible dissatisfaction. He fouled. He hit Harry. Ron yelled, jumping up and down in the stands. Even Hermione could see it wasn't right. Draco held up the golden snitch. His face was triumphant. He landed in the center of the pitch, surrounded by his teammates. Slytherin wins. Miles learned something from somewhere. Jakes had mastered dark curses and successfully fought against Professor Quirrell. So, He felt an impulse mixed with admiration. He also began secretly consulting relevant books and practicing in secluded places. Soon, this was quickly discovered by Draco Malfoy. Look at our little Miles, starting to study those. What, do you think a mudblood can still bow at the Dark Lord's feet and learn some real skills? Mudblood, worshipping the Dark Lord. These two words pierced Miles's heart. For a long time, he had been the target of bullying. At this moment, he finally erupted. At least he got angry at Malfoy. I'm not. Miles's face turned crimson. He lunged at Malfoy. The two immediately wrestled together, tearing their robes and knocking over the coffee table. Crabbe and Goyle tried to help, but Jake stopped them with a cold stare. Finally, the prefect arrived, alerted by the commotion, and separated the two. Both were bruised, their robes disheveled, and they were panting. Fighting in the common room. 20 points deducted from each. Detention. The prefect angrily announced. Jakes walked over to Miles and commented dryly. Draco, you can't even beat the person you despise the most. It seems Narcissus' invitation was quite necessary after all. His gaze swept over Malfoy, full of meaning. Malfoy felt humiliated and angry, but he dared not retort to Jakes. Clean up. Starting tomorrow, you'll be studying with me in the evenings. He had once accepted the Serpent's Eye necklace. He had gained benefits from it and had also promised Narcissa that he would tutor Malfoy. Now it seemed. It was almost time to begin his tutoring. A disused potion storage room in the basement. Jakes had temporarily converted it into a training ground. Draco Malfoy stood in the center of the room. What are we training? Hand-to-hand combat, or wand practice? Do you think you're good at hand-to-hand combat? Jakes retorted without reservation. Yesterday's fight was meaningless. As wizards, we naturally learn magical combat. Today, we'll practice the rapid casting and maintenance of the shield charm. This is a means of self-preservation. Jakes's tone was flat. I will attack you with the Stupefy spell. If you can't block it, pick yourself up. Wait. Draco hastily raised his wand. Enemies won't wait for you to be ready. Stupefy. Jakes's wand shot out a red light almost instantly. The speed was astonishing. Draco hurriedly used a shield charm. But this thin layer of protection was shattered instantly like paper. Ah! Draco cried out in pain, flying backward. He landed on the ground with a thump, his wand flying out of his hand. Too slow, too weak. Where is your ambition? Where is your arrogance? Or is your courage only shown when bullying the weak and resorting to dirty tricks? Draco gritted his teeth, forcing himself to get up and retrieve his wand. Facing his fear of Jakes, he could only growl, raising his wand again. Again. Protega. Bang. He was knocked down again. Once, twice, thrice. Jakes was merciless. Draco's robes were covered in dust. His forehead was scraped, and his arms ached so much he could barely lift them. Scared. Jakes watched his evasive gaze. He stopped his attack, his tone disdainful. You're scared already. Where's the momentum you had when you were confronting Potter? Did a stray dog eat it? Remember this feeling, Draco. This is the taste of weakness. If you don't want to work hard, then put away your ridiculous sense of superiority. After all, that's something your father's surname bought, not you. Jakes put away his wand and turned to leave. Continue tomorrow. If you dare to come. Draco sat alone on the ground, his whole body aching. His heart was filled with an unprecedented sense of frustration. He knew that the tutoring had just begun. The good days were yet to come. That controversial victory. Slytherin ultimately lifted the Quidditch Cup. In contrast, there was disappointment in the Gryffindor Tower. The fragile relationship between the trio and Jakes was severely affected. When they met in the corridor, Hermione offered a quick nod. Ron, meanwhile, turned his head away. As for Harry, he felt too ashamed to face him. After one potion class, pushed forward by Ron, Hermione awkwardly stopped Jakes, who was about to leave. Jakes, we just wanted to ask, what do you think about the result of the Quidditch final? Malfoy clearly. Jakes stopped. He glanced at Ron and Harry, who were straining their ears nearby. The result is that Slytherin won. That's not fair. Ron couldn't help but rush over. Malfoy used despicable means. Do you really think that's right? We thought you would at least. Thought I would what? Jakes interrupted him, his tone still flat. That I would side with you and condemn my own house. Or did you think I would be outraged over the fairness of a Quidditch match? I came to Hogwarts to learn magic and strive to become stronger, not to make friends. Ron was choked by his words and opened his mouth. Just as expected. Slytherins are all like this. I should have known. Fred and George thought you were different. I think they're the real idiots. Hearing this, Jakes twitched the corner of his mouth. He smiled mockingly. Weasley, I fail to understand your logic. He said no more, walking around the three people frozen in place. Leaving Ron stamping his feet in anger. Harry looked thoughtful. And Hermione watched Jakes's retreating back. Her eyes were filled with a hint of disappointment. The potion classroom. An old classroom, temporarily serving as the defense against the dark arts classroom. Since Quirrell's incident, Snape was temporarily teaching the class. In this class, the atmosphere had completely changed. Snape glided silently between the desks. He carried an oppressive presence. Therefore, when facing basic jinxes like the giggle whoop curse, an inadequate shield charm will only make you die faster. And his gaze swept across the class. Finally, it settled precisely on Jakes. Mr. Jakes, you seem to have extraordinary insights into certain spells, beyond the scope of the curriculum. And are unwilling to listen to the lecture. Then, please tell the class, when facing a leg locker curse, what is a more ingenious countermeasure? All eyes in the class focused on Jakes. Draco Malfoy, after the tutoring incident, was waiting to see him embarrass himself. Jakes stood up calmly, without the slightest hesitation. The leg locker curse. Aside from conventional defense and counterattack, one can use a small-scale scouring charm to disrupt the caster's magic field, causing the spell to become unbalanced before it fully forms. This saves time compared to constructing a shield charm, and the intention to counterattack is more concealed. His answer was clear and fluent. It went completely beyond the scope of the textbook, yet was logically rigorous. The classroom fell silent. Even Hermione's eyes widened, seemingly considering the feasibility of this method. Snape stared intently at Jakes. After a moment, he didn't smile, but his eyes grew colder. Ah, the scouring charm. His tone was filled with Snape-esque sarcasm and criticism. A spell used for cleaning dust from classroom corners, being used to counter the dark arts. How creative. Mr. Jakes, it seems you are not only gifted in certain areas, but your thinking is also so unconventional. He took a step closer, lowering his voice further. However, playing with such petty cleverness often comes with risks. I hope your understanding of magic is sufficient to support these ideas. Although it was sarcasm, upon closer inspection, did it seem to contain a hint of recognition. At least, it was no longer pure disgust. Snape gave a cold snort and turned back toward the podium. Gryffindor, 10 points deducted for lack of answer. Continue the lesson. The tutoring sessions continued. Draco Malfoy screaming miserably. Falling to the ground with a thud had become routine. However, Draco Malfoy's progress was also very noticeable. Meanwhile, another important matter began to spread throughout the wizarding world. Several potion shops in Diagon Alley. And a new small counter opened next to Zonko's joke shop in Hogsmeade. A blue potion called Active Magic began to be sold. The price was affordable. The effect was described as slightly enhancing magic vitality and alleviating casting fatigue. This was precisely the simplified version of the magic potion promoted by Lucius Malfoy. One evening, Fred and George Weasley sought out Jakes again. He had just finished a day of tutoring. The two of them wore their familiar smiles. Hey, Jakes. Fred rubbed his hands together. Did you see that active magic potion being sold in Hogsmeade? The sales are pretty good. We have a brilliant idea. How about we collaborate on some active laughter? The kind that makes people burst into uncontrollable laughter when they drink it. Or active color change, which makes people's hair change color randomly. Guaranteed to sell better than Zonko's products. George added, you get 70% of the profit, we get 30%. We'll handle the materials. Jakes looked at them, showing no sign of interest. No collaboration. He refused flatly, my time and energy are not used for manufacturing jokes. The twins' smiles instantly dropped. Come on, think about it. This would definitely sweep the entire school. Jakes ignored their persistence. Just as he was about to leave, A Gringotts owl landed on his windowsill. It dropped a letter bearing the bank's seal. He opened the letter and quickly scanned it. Inside was a concise financial statement showing his vault. Due to the sales commission from the active magic potion, the amount had increased again by a considerable figure. He folded the letter expressionlessly and put it away. This was far more substantial than the twins' so-called joke potions. It was early Saturday morning. A silver Patronus, a phoenix apparition, flew through the walls of the Slytherin common room. It stopped in front of Jake's and spoke in a human voice. It was Dumbledore's gentle and clear voice. Mr. Jakes, if you are free, please come to my office. There is something there that might interest you. When he stepped into the office again, Jakes saw Dumbledore standing in the center of the room. Suspended in the air before him was an irregularly shaped red stone. Inside, it seemed to contain vast life and creativity. The Philosopher's Stone. Jakes whispered. You protected it, and I believe you have the right to witness its true form before it is destroyed. Dumbledore turned around, scrutiny in his half-moon spectacles. Jakes's gaze fell upon the Philosopher's Stone. A truly astonishing creation. His tone remained steady. But only he knew the turmoil within his heart. The books say, transmuting base metals into gold, eternal life, it touches upon the field of alchemy, but in truth, it also involves the mastery of ancient magic. Dumbledore waved his hand gently, allowing the Philosopher's Stone to slowly settle onto a tray. Yes, Nicholas spent hundreds of years researching this gem. He proved that it is filled with destructive temptation. After the previous incident, he believes it should not continue to exist in the world. So, Mr. Nicholas Flamel will destroy it himself. Jakes confirmed. Dumbledore nodded. A faint sorrow flashed across his face. But more than that, there was calm resignation. This is their own choice. Ending the Philosopher's Stone, ending their long lives. Jakes was silent for a moment. Sure enough, such an ending was unavoidable. He looked at the stone that could bring endless wealth and life. He quickly weighed his options internally. He looked up at Dumbledore and made an unexpected request. Before it is destroyed, Professor Dumbledore, may I meet Mr. Nicholas Flamel? I have many questions regarding alchemy, ancient magic, and the fundamental laws of the world behind the Philosopher's Stone. Dumbledore scrutinized him carefully, seemingly assessing the motivation behind this request. After a long while, Dumbledore revealed a gentle smile. The thirst for knowledge is always one of the most powerful forces driving the progress of magic. I think Nicholas would also be pleased to meet such an interested young man. Very well, I grant your request. Apparition. Jakes followed Dumbledore, appearing at a manor in southern France. Outside the manor, powerful magical barriers were set up. Mr. Dumbledore, the Master has been waiting for you for a long time. Please lead the way for us. Guided by a house elf. They entered a study filled with sunlight and piled high with various alchemical instruments and ancient books. Nicholas Flamel was far more ordinary than Jakes had imagined. He was merely a thin, white-haired old man, dressed in simple robes. And beside him was an old woman, his wife, Perenelle, who had specially prepared black tea for them. Albus, and this young gentleman. Nicholas, speaking with a strong French accent, looked at Jakes, filled with curiosity. I hear you are very interested in my little stone. Not because of the gold or life it grants, but, why does it work this way? Yes, sir. Jakes bowed respectfully, then got straight to the point. What is the principle behind its operation? How does it achieve material transformation and life extension? Does this certainly involve the field of ancient magic? A hint of surprise appeared in Nicholas's eyes. He glanced at Dumbledore, who smiled and nodded. A very insightful question, young man. Most wizards only see the result, while you see the problem itself. He did not answer directly. Instead, he began to guide Jakes. In front of them, he drew the energy structure of a magic array, composed of profound alchemical symbols and energy circuits. He then began to explain the principles within. Jakes listened intently. His SSS-level ancient magic talent was activated to the extreme at this moment. His brain began operating at an unprecedented speed. Ancient magic knowledge comprehension greatly increased. Alchemy principles exposure. Material transformation laws partial glimpsed. At this moment, Nicholas Flamel successfully transformed a stone into gold. The system also produced a prompt. Jake's pupils sharply contracted. A sudden realization flooded his mind. Special ability unlocked. Transmuting base metals into gold weakened version. Effect. Can convert small structures into gold by consuming a large amount of personal magic power. Duration. Permanent. Consumption is enormous, efficiency is low. This is enlightenment. It seems completely different from the understanding of transfiguration. Did you understand, young man? Nicholas noticed a momentary unusual feeling flash across Jake's. He was slightly stunned. Then he revealed a meaningful smile. It seems you've learned something, young man. Nicholas said slowly. Just a realization. Jake's dared not admit it directly. But he had indeed learned many things. Leaving Flamel's manor. On the way back to Hogwarts. Jake's was still immersed in what he had gained. He suddenly spoke to the silent Dumbledore beside him. Professor, Mr. Flamel has proven that magic can change the laws of the world. Dumbledore's gaze was profound. Yes. But such actions often come with enormous costs and risks. The legendary three brothers, the Deathly Hallows they possessed all held inconceivable power. But they also led them to different fates. The eldest died in strife, the second died of regret, and only the youngest, who let go of his obsession, finally passed away peacefully. He looked at Jake's, his tone gentle yet cautionary. Overly powerful strength often twists the minds of its wielders, and may even attract unforeseeable calamity. Jake's met Dumbledore's gaze. I understand the risks, Professor. But, he paused, his tone firm, anything is possible. He said no more. But the seed of an idea was already deeply planted in his heart. To master ancient magic, even surpass the Philosopher's Stone, this seemingly impossible path was actually proven achievable. Draco Malfoy was panting heavily. Sweat dripped down his cheeks. His blonde hair was plastered messily to his forehead. He looked exhausted but also quite satisfied. Jake stood opposite him. The wand in his hand hung loosely. One last time. Get ready. Draco took a deep breath. He tightly gripped his wand, focusing completely. This period of tutoring had given him a profound understanding of what absolute power disparity meant. Under Professor Jake's guidance, he had made immense progress. He no longer waved his wand haphazardly. Instead, he began observing Jake's casting movements. Stupefy. A red light instantly shot out, heading straight for Draco's chest. The moment the red light was about to hit him, Draco instinctively retreated sharply and twisted his body. Whoosh. The Stupefy curse grazed his wizard robes. A faint mark was left on the stone wall behind him. He dodged it. After Draco regained his balance, his chest rose and fell rapidly. His face was filled with excitement. I succeeded. I didn't pass out this time. Jake's nodded slightly. Your reaction speed is acceptable. At least you're no longer a sitting duck. Draco's arrogance instantly returned. That is, of course. The learning capability of the House of Malfoy is absolutely top tier. Dodging a spell of this level is only natural. He was still boasting, but Jake's cut him off. Don't get ahead of yourself. That was just the most basic Stupefy. I didn't use any tactical variations, let alone silent casting or non-verbal casting. When truly powerful wizards use those two techniques in combat, they won't be so friendly. He put away his wand, signaling the end of today's training. The smug look on Draco's face froze. But this time, he didn't argue back. Because he silently felt a dull ache somewhere beneath his wizard robes. It was just a graze, but the power was not to be underestimated. Thinking about other wizard duels made him gasp sharply. Leaving the training room, they returned to the Slytherin common room. Draco spoke more than usual. My father says that potion is selling extremely well. His tone was excited. One shop in Hogsmeade sold as much in a week as some previous potions made in half a year. Jakes showed no reaction, simply walking calmly. Draco continued to chatter. Father also said we need to quickly expand production and capture more market share. We need to squeeze out all those inferior potions. Market share. Jakes suddenly spoke playfully. What do you think market share is? Draco was stunned for a moment. It's when more people buy our products. And we earn more money. Shallow. Market share is essentially the power of discourse and the power of pricing. When more than half the wizards in the market are using your product, the standards you set become the industry standards, and the prices you set become the benchmark prices. This is far more valuable than mere galleons. Draco understood vaguely. But he keenly grasped the concept of the power of discourse. It was incredibly exciting. This is just the beginning. Next, I plan to develop a new potion. A potion that can rapidly restore a wizard's stamina, magic power, and even minor injuries in a short amount of time. Draco's eyes instantly widened. Rapid recovery. Faster than a healing spell. Of course. Jakes retorted, compared to a healing spell, the focus should be on its rapid recovery and the comprehensiveness of the recovery. Because nothing is more convenient than achieving an effect with a simple flick of a wand. Therefore, the focus is on recovering better and more comprehensively, making it incomparable to a healing spell. His tone was full of certainty. Using this as a selling point, it will target clients who truly need power and are willing to pay enormous costs for it. This will further expand our market share. Draco listened, his heart surging with excitement. It was as if countless galleons and family prestige were already pouring in. This is amazing. He said excitedly, Father will definitely give his full support. Malfoy Manor, study. Lucius Malfoy looked at an all-post letter. This was Draco's encrypted, brief report. A flicker of genuine greed appeared on his usually cold face. Rapid recovery potion, more direct effect than a healing spell. As a shrewd businessman, he was acutely aware of the massive market represented by this potion. If it could truly be launched successfully, the House of Malfoy would be able to expand its influence, establishing stronger ties of interest with wizards in the magical world, adventurers, and certain hidden forces. Subsequently, he immediately summoned his most capable business consultant, an old wizard who also hailed from a pure-blood family. Allocate some resources to Jakes. We need to prepare for a completely new, disruptive product. Be careful not to attract the attention of others in the market. He quickly issued instructions, starting to plan the future production and sales. He even envisioned that if this potion were introduced to the Ministry of Magic, and St. Mungo's Hospital, he would possess even greater influence. When everything was properly arranged, he sat back down at his desk and unfurled an expensive piece of parchment. He began writing a letter to Jakes. The wording was more polite than usual, and clearly stated that the House of Malfoy would spare no resource and provide full support. As for the profit split, that could be discussed later. A few days later, Jakes received this personal letter from Lucius Malfoy. He quickly scanned it. Then he immediately ignored Lucius's feigned enthusiasm. If the planning has begun, then we can proceed with the arrangements. As for how he should properly allocate these resources, that requires careful consideration. He picked up a quill. At the end of the letter, he wrote only 2 words. Agreed. Begin. Thus, the Malfoy family's new partnership plan was officially launched. Late night. Hogwarts Castle was silent. Most students had long since fallen asleep. However, Jakes suddenly awoke with a start. An invisible throb began to guide him. The source came from the Forbidden Forest. At this hour. Why is it guiding me here? He quietly got up. Miles, sleeping on the opposite bed, was still roused by him. At the same time, he went to the dormitory next door. A Lumos spell startled Draco Malfoy awake. Ah! Who? Draco shrieked as he sat up. Get dressed and follow me. In the middle of the night, you woke us up and called him. What are we going to do? Miles was groggy, bewildered, and frightened. Malfoy was about to get angry, but swallowed the curses on his lips. The 3 put on their robes. Under the cover of night, they stealthily entered the dark Forbidden Forest. How lucky. We didn't run into the caretaker and his cat. It's cold. The deeper they went, Jakes felt the restless throb in his heart grow more pronounced. As they passed through a thicket. In the clearing ahead, several tall centaurs appeared. They watched their surroundings vigilantly. The leading centaur had sharp and profound eyes. Human cubs. Bane's tone was unfriendly. Trespassing into the Forbidden Forest at night, you have broken the agreement. We felt an unusual fluctuation. Jakes took a step forward, ignoring Bane's hostility, and looked directly at Firenze. Have the paths of the stars been disturbed recently? Especially, those related to darkness and slaughter. The centaurs stirred noticeably. Firenze looked deeply at Jakes. He yearned to investigate this boy. You understand stargazing. Ferenzi's voice was mellow and calm. Only a little. Jakes replied, but I can feel that there's an anomaly in the celestial phenomena, isn't there? Bane stomped his hooves irritably. The knowledge of centaurs is not shared with humans. Especially you. Mars is unusually bright, as if it's bleeding. Firenze interrupted Bane. He looked up at the night sky, obscured by the tree canopy. His tone carried a hint of worry. The position of Ophiuchus has also shifted unnaturally. Indeed, the celestial phenomena foretell great upheaval and the return of darkness. The return of darkness. Jakes repeated the phrase. You mean, Lord Voldemort. This name was like a forbidden spell. It made all the centaurs present recoil sharply. Their faces showed expressions of fear and disgust. Even Draco Malfoy and Miles trembled. What are you saying, Jakes? You know who? Impossible. An elderly centaur growled, that demon is dead. His body was destroyed, but his soul never truly left. Jakes's voice was calm. He is lurking in some corner, gathering strength. I can feel the unrest in the Forbidden Forest, the anomaly in the celestial phenomena. He looked at Firenze. Now that the omens are so clear, why are you unwilling to believe? Firenze met Jakes's gaze. We believe in the stars. But the centaur race only observes, we do not interfere. Jakes said lightly, observers can also be affected. Firenze was silent for a moment. Finally, he nodded slightly. Your words are not without reason. I will take your warning, and my observations, back to the tribe for careful discussion. His attitude was clearly more open and trusting than the other centaurs. Just then, Draco Malfoy secretly tugged at Jakes's sleeve. Is he really back? If so, I must tell my father immediately. Jakes glanced at him. His tone remained unchanged. It doesn't matter. But you, and the Malfoy family, need to understand one thing. If you wish to return to his command, seeking so-called glory, then all cooperation between us will immediately cease. Draco shivered with fright. No, we won't. Our Malfoy family is now cooperating very well with you. Miles, who was standing by, remained silent. He had no idea what Malfoy was so afraid of. After returning from the Forbidden Forest, Jakes devoted all his energy to potion research and development. Of course, the study of alchemy could not be neglected. His discussions with Nicholas Flamel gave him a deeper understanding of magic. Thus, he applied these insights to potions. Active magic potions were no longer just for recovery, but for enhancement. But this would be more complex and dangerous. It involved overdrawing vitality and bodily functions, but the effect would undoubtedly be revolutionary. It took almost only 1 week. Both the active recovery potion and the new version of the active magic potion were successfully developed. There was no time for hesitation. Jakes directly swallowed both potions. Cough, cough, cough. The taste isn't very good. The next second, the potion's energy rushed through his body. It felt as if his magic had increased, and his physical strength had also recovered significantly. It seems to be working. But I can't detect any changes. The changes in the system interface made him certain that the potion was successful. Magic surge detected. Magic power increasing. Spell ability increasing. Re-evaluating. Magic level updated. SSS plus. Spell ability level updated. SSS plus. 2. SSS plus. I didn't expect the system to have such an upgrade. This proves that I still have a lot of room for improvement in the future. Gradually, Jakes felt the activity within his body gradually subside. His power was no longer restless. A satisfied smile finally appeared on his face. New potions have been developed. The template has also been upgraded. Everything is getting better. Before Jakes was a simple workbench. A fragment of dark red gemstone was emitting a faint light. Let's begin. He took a deep breath. The tip of his wand pointed at the red gemstone. His mind was filled with the knowledge of alchemy explained by Nicholas Flamel, as well as the restless stirring of the template. Information regarding transmutation, the path of magic flow, began to surge. Buzz. Light circulated in the air. Pale golden lines wrapped around and intertwined, slowly seeping into the gemstone. The surface of the gemstone began to emit a rich luster. It worked. Something seems off. A hint of joy had just flashed in Jakes's eyes. Crack. The entire alchemical structure collapsed. The golden lines broke and vanished without a trace. The red gemstone also returned to its original appearance. Failure. He reached out, picked up the stone, and applied a little force. With a snap, a piece of the edge broke off. Injecting the ability of transmutation, still can't imbue it with the true essence of material transformation. Something is missing. Ancient magic. Following that, a location surfaced in his mind. Godric's Hollow. That valley, where two of the Hogwarts founders were born. When the term ends, I must go there. For now, I'll put away the work on the Philosopher's Stone alchemy. The first failure was expected. But the direction was already clear. After cleaning up, he left directly. Hermione Granger ran into Jake's. Her bushy brown hair was less voluminous than usual. Her expression was very hesitant. Jake's. What is it? See, can I talk to you? Hermione took a deep breath. Jake's nodded. About what? About Harry and Ron. Their accusations that they were too much. Jake's didn't speak, just looked at her. I thought about it for a long time afterward. You are different from the other Slytherins. If it weren't for you, Professor Quirrell surely would have hurt us. After all, what would we three have encountered if we had rashly gone to protect the Philosopher's Stone that night? She looked up, meeting Jake's gaze. Facing Professor Quirrell, we had no chance of winning. We might even have died. The last few words. She spoke softly, but clearly. Jake's raised an eyebrow. So, therefore, they shouldn't have accused you like that. Especially Ron, holding a grudge over that stupid house cup. She looked angry and disappointed. What happened to Quirrell? Jake's changed the subject. He was locked up in Azkaban. Hermione replied, calming down slightly. The Daily Prophet revealed that he attempted to threaten student safety. Has no one at Hogwarts complained that it's so unsafe, even with the White Wizard in charge? Apparently, it was written by a reporter named Rita Skeeter. Expected. Jake's didn't react much. I just feel it's unfair. I'm used to it. Jake's tone was flat. Hermione, you don't need to feel guilty about this. Thank you for being objective. It's much better than your two friends. Hermione opened her mouth. In the end, she didn't try to defend Harry and Ron again. She knew Jake's was speaking the truth. All right. I just wanted to say that. Now that I'm done, I won't bother you anymore. Then she prepared to leave. Jake suddenly called out to her. Granger. Hermione turned back. Have a pleasant holiday. Hermione paused, and a genuine smile appeared on her face. You too, Jake's. She suddenly felt in her heart that their relationship had softened somewhat. The end-of-term feast in the Hogwarts Great Hall. The 4 long tables were filled with students. Banners fluttered overhead. Slytherin silver and green dominated the hall. But the atmosphere was somewhat subtle. Dumbledore stood at the main podium. Another year has passed. Before we enjoy this great feast, we must carry out a necessary procedure, the awarding of the House Cup. The current scores are as follows. Slytherin, 532 points. A burst of enthusiastic applause and cheers erupted from the Slytherin table. Malfoy raised his chin proudly, clapping vigorously. Over at the Gryffindor table, Ron was muttering curses under his breath, and Harry's expression was grim. Yes, Slytherin has performed excellently. However, certain recent events must also be taken into account. To Miss Hermione Granger, for displaying quick wit in the face of potential danger, 50 points will be awarded. Hermione looked up in surprise, blushing. A round of polite applause sounded from Gryffindor. To Harry Potter, for outstanding courage, 50 points will be awarded. And Ron. Finally, Dumbledore's gaze turned toward the Slytherin table. It landed on Jake's. Jake's prevented a potential tragedy and maintained the safety of Hogwarts. For this, to Slytherin, 100 points will be awarded. The entire Great Hall first fell into dead silence. Immediately after, the cheers from Slytherin nearly blew the roof off. Jake's. Jake's. They chanted Jake's name. Even Malfoy was slapping Jake's on the shoulder, his face flushed with excitement. In contrast, Gryffindor was utterly silent. That's not fair. Ron growled. They clearly were. Stop talking, Ron. Harry stopped Ron, looking toward Jake's at the Slytherin table. It was as if those 100 points had nothing to do with him. Dumbledore smiled. In that case, we may begin the feast. At this moment, Slytherin's cheers reached a climax once more. They became the true protagonists of the first year. The feast ended. Students hustled and bustled out of the great hall. Amidst the crowd, Draco Malfoy elbowed his way next to Jake's. Jakes, what are your plans for the holiday? Father invites you to visit Malfoy Manor. We will provide the highest level of hospitality. He deliberately raised his voice, ensuring that people around them could hear. As if this were the highest honor. No sooner had he finished speaking than two identical red-haired heads squeezed in from the other side. It was George and Fred Weasley. Hey, Jakes. Fred chimed in with a grin. Don't listen to him, Malfoy Manor is freezing cold, what's fun about that? George interjected. We want to invite you to the burrow. Fred said enthusiastically, we guarantee it's much more interesting than certain manors. Malfoy's face instantly darkened. He looked at the twins with disgust. The burrow. That slum. Weasley, can your family even provide decent food for guests? It won't all be potatoes, will it? It's better than the food at your house, which is plated with gold and impossible to swallow. George immediately retorted. At least we understand hospitality, instead of relying on numbers and noise. Malfoy sneered. Our liveliness comes from family affection, something certain only children wouldn't understand. Fred made a face. The two exchanged words rapidly. The tension was building. The surrounding students slowed their pace, watching with interest. Jakes was stuck in the middle. Expressionless. Enough. Please thank Mr. Lucius for me, and thank you both. I already have other arrangements for the holiday. Malfoy maintained his composure. Very well, the invitation will always be open for you. As for the other blood traitors, they will never get a chance. Jakes looked at George and Fred. All right, Jakes. X2. Have an interesting holiday. X2. The crowd gradually dispersed. Jakes was about to leave. Mr. Jakes. A serious voice called out to him. It was Professor McGonagall. She walked over quickly, concern in her eyes. Regarding next term's bursary. Given that you, obtained funds through other means. The school's bursary committee has discussed this and may no longer be able to provide you with assistance. Jakes looked unfazed. I understand, Professor. It's all right. Professor McGonagall frowned slightly. Your performance this term has been outstanding. Jakes nodded. Thank you, Professor McGonagall. I owe this opportunity to you. Professor McGonagall finally nodded. Very well. Have a pleasant holiday, Mr. Jakes. You too, Professor McGonagall. Leaving the Hogwarts Express. Jakes did not return to the orphanage, unlike during the Christmas holidays. Instead, he pushed open the wooden door of the leaky cauldron. The smell of alcohol wafted toward him. Under the dim light. A few blurry figures of wizards gathered in the corner, speaking in low voices. Did you hear? The Ministry of Magic is. It's Dumbledore's same old rhetoric. Jakes did not stop, walking straight toward the counter. Old Tom was wiping a cup. A room. Jakes was brief and concise. Oh, it's you, kid. Is the term over? Old Tom put down the cup and pulled a brass key from under the counter. Third floor, the innermost room. Thank you. Jakes took the key and turned to leave. The conversation from the corner faintly drifted into his ears. You know who? Come on. The ministry doesn't believe it at all. But the Auror office still sent people out, just for show. Minister Fudge said Dumbledore just wants to seize power. Jakes paused slightly. He couldn't help but laugh. Sure enough. The Ministry of Magic bureaucracy chose to bury their heads in the sand. Lord Voldemort's return. No, that's too much trouble. So, they might as well claim Dumbledore is spreading panic. As for the Aurors sent out. Jakes shook his head. He picked up his luggage and went up to the third floor. The room was small, but tidy. Jakes put down his things and did not linger. He went out again and entered Diagon Alley. Ding dong. What do you need, young sir? The shopkeeper greeted him warmly. A few sheets of dragon hide, a basic carving knife set, and... Jakes's gaze swept over the shelves, 10 ounces of standard undetectable extension charm casting materials. Oh. A large purchase. The shopkeeper's eyes lit up, and he quickly packed the items, researching advanced magic. Jakes did not reply. He paid the galleons, picked up the package, and left. Next stop, Flourish and Blots. He purchased several books on ancient runes and magic ruins textual research. Then he returned to the small room at the leaky cauldron. All preparations are complete. Now, let's give it a try. Jake spread out the materials. He picked up a dragon hide belt. He tapped it lightly with his wand. The undetectable extension charm began to be cast. This type of spatial spell was completely beyond the grasp of a first-year student like him. So, practice was necessary. Time passed little by little. Buzz, the patterns completely stabilized. It's done. A belt with the undetectable extension charm. Jakes picked up the belt. His magic sense extended into it. There was about 2 cubic meters of space, perfectly structured. He easily placed the purchased carving knives and books inside. He nodded in satisfaction. It's enough. Preparation complete. The next morning, Jake stood in front of the bar's fireplace, waiting for the person ahead to disappear. He grabbed a handful of sparkling flow powder, which ignited into green flames. Godric's Hollow. He stepped in. A dizzying sensation swept over him. A few seconds later, he stumbled out of another fireplace, which had a little ash collected in it. Godric's Hollow arrived. The place where the founders of Hogwarts lived. A segment of the school history clearly records this place. Jakes observed through the sunlight. Ancient houses were scattered neatly, all situated along both sides of cobblestone paths. A sense of historical weight was everywhere. Just then, an old woman dressed in simple robes was sitting on a garden bench in front of her house, basking in the sun. She held a thick, leather-bound book in her hands. Clearly, she noticed the unfamiliar young man. Young man, you look unfamiliar. Are you looking for someone? Jake stopped. No, madam. Just looking around. The history here is very appealing. The old woman smiled, the wrinkles around her eyes smoothing out. Not many young people like history nowadays. I am Bathilda Bagshot. I've written a few casual books on history of magic. Jakes remembered. One of the contributors to History of Magic. Pleased to meet you. I've read your name in books. He nodded slightly. Would you like to come in and sit down, child? Madame Bagshot invited him warmly. If you're interested, I have some ancient notes and maps at home that might help you understand this place better. Jakes pondered for a moment and nodded. Excuse me for intruding. When he entered Bathilda Bagshot's cottage, Madame Bagshot poured him a cup of floral tea. Godric's Hollow hides many stories. For example, the graveyard next to the church is where many famous figures are buried, including the Peverell family, mentioned in the tale of the 3 brothers in the Tales of Beetle the Bard. Including. Jakes's heart stirred. Peverell, the legend of the Deathly Hallows. The Philosopher's Stone. You know about the Philosopher's Stone too. Bathilda Bagshot showed delight. That's right, it's one of the stories of the 3 brothers. Madame Bagshot then continued her narration. He listened calmly, occasionally asking 1 or 2 questions. The atmosphere was harmonious. After a brief exchange, he bid farewell to the warm Madame Bagshot. Following her instructions, Jakes walked toward the church in the corner of the hollow. Next to it was the ancient graveyard. The gravestones were silent. The Potter couple. He walked among the gravestones. His gaze was sharp, and he spotted a gravestone. This is. The 3 brothers of the Peverell family, found them. Ignotus Peverell, Cadmus Peverell, Anton Peverell. The gravestones of the 3 brothers stood side by side. The inscriptions and unique symbols on them were very worn. I hope there is something here that I need. Let's go. He crouched down. He carefully observed the patterns on the gravestone. Then he extended his magic sense to the gravestone. Below it, faint traces of ancient magic remained. There really is something. They obtained these things from the will of magic. As his magic flowed through, an extremely obscure information stream flowed back into his mind along with the magic. Something resembling coordinates appeared in his mind. The specific location. It was a cliff. At the bottom of the cliff, there seemed to be an entrance buried by vines. At the entrance, several ancient runes characters were carved. Nirvana. Trial. Comprehension. Mastery. Jakes withdrew his hand, his eyes burning brightly. Since he guessed that the 3 brothers obtaining the Deathly Hallows must have involved ancient magic, he was certain that such a place existed. An ancient magic ruin. He didn't expect that it was all true. But, Nirvana. Trial. Comprehension. Mastery. What did these mean? He repeated softly. It sounded like it wouldn't be an easy place. Good. Let's go. He took one last look at the 3 silent gravestones, preparing to head to his next destination. Thanks for watching.